Whether you hold AVAX, you want to learn about it, or you're thinking of buying in, you're going to want to give a listen to this interview. It's with one of the top project managers over at Ava Labs. And we talked about subnets, we talked about development on the blockchain, we talked about possible utilities, and we talked about why Avalanche is so popular for gaming developers and what the possible future can hold for the Avalanche blockchain. Hope you enjoy.
I work for Ava Labs. We have a lot of different things going across the board. I specifically work on some of our consumer products. So that's our Explorer product and our Core, which is our wallet, but also happy to touch on some of what's going on in Avalanche. Some things I'm excited about with Core is just kind of like as more users come in and as a lot of utility is starting to rev back up into this bull market, people are starting to find our wallet to be incredibly useful in Avalanche. And we've had a lot of things sitting kind of in the shadows during the bear market and now starting to get a lot of attention, a lot of use, such as like some of our staking tools. And I'm very excited by people starting to dive into that.
Yeah. What do you see? There's still a lot of people that'll say, well, crypto is basically no utility. There's no actual utility. It's extremely speculative. It's just kind of gambling essentially. And then there's the people who believe that it's going to change kind of the way the internet is used, change the way assets are digitized. What do you think is like the actual, like, what do you see being like one of the real utilities on Avalanche and kind of in crypto in general?
I think there are a lot of different utilities. There's definitely that individuals, especially on the meme coin thing, like, there's a lot of gambling or scams, but it's important to see like what are the actual end goals and where we want to get there. And sometimes it takes a long time. Some of those examples can be kind of some of the things that we're working on with projects that have long-term initiatives that actually provide some use cases. One example I'll use is gaming, for example. Avalanche has such a great setup or utility for game companies. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Avalanche technology, but we leverage something that called subnets, and subnets have been very much a key part of our strategy, and games have seemed to be flocking to that, where when gaming first came out in blockchain, it was a lot of like those like play to earn, like these little card games, and then suddenly people would hit all the rewards and leave. But now it's really starting to see like these AAA companies are coming in and seeing like true utility. Wow, we can put some real money behind a really high quality game and make that the real thing people want to go to, and then offer this on-chain digital asset ownership where they have uniqueness to these like skins that they really care about. So that's like one aspect, but there are a lot of others that come in there. Recently, Avalanche had individuals be able to take out loans for their for home equity, or you can provide some form of liquidity for trading metal assets when there isn't a ton of liquidity in the traditional market, and then fees are incredibly expensive. So in reality, I think the transition to like true use cases, they take a long time to come to fruition, but that's kind of the end goal. Some of the early ones, like I said, we're seeing is gaming. Some of the long-term ones are financial markets, and hopefully between then and now, a lot of these scams and gambling falls away, and we can really see that like true use case come through.
Yeah, I definitely have some questions about subnets, but it made me think about gaming, and it seems like most of the Web3 games is all like PC on the computer. Do you see gaming, Web3 games moving on to PlayStation and Xbox?
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to misquote or misrepresent one, but I'm pretty sure there's like some big ones also moving on to that now. I think it's called Gunzilla, which is also referred to as Off the Grid. It's one of our big subnet developments. I think they're going on to Xbox. I think it was being made by the same guy who made District 9. I think it's Neil Bachman. I might be pronouncing his name wrong. But yeah, they're definitely making that transition. It goes from, like we kind of mentioned before, like these small little play to earn scam games to like, these AAA high quality initiatives like first person shooters or adventure games that are really saying like, hey, we see these use cases, and to enable the masses to access it. Yes, you have PC games, but to enable the masses to access it, PS5 or Xbox, they need to be able to get into that. And that's definitely like on the horizon.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so do you know how that's going to, and this is kind of a question I have about subnets in its creating actual demand for the native token? Like if there's a super successful game built on a subnet, it goes on to PlayStation 5, does it actually affect the like demand for the native AVAX token? Do you know?
The demand for the native AVAX token?
Like is there
So it's an interesting like concept for like how subnets create demand for the Avalanche token. There's a lot of different like, I don't know, say theories or tokenomics that might be tweaked as time goes on. But right now, basically what subnets are horizontal scaling solutions. So individuals are going out and developing individual blockchains that are leveraging the consensus protocol of the primary network in Avalanche. And what that means is basically any validator on Avalanche also can participate in validating a subnet. As more and more subnets are created, these validators can not only earn by validating on the primary network of Avalanche, but they can also earn by validating and earning rewards on these multiple subnets. A component of deploying a subnet is that you have to have a validator on the Avalanche primary network. By requiring that, which has a piece of Avalanche, which requires you to stake a minimum of 2,000 AVAX, it increases demand for those validators to earn rewards, to participate in those other subnets as they develop. And this kind of goes down a rabbit hole of like, oh, wow, there will be a whole market for validators where they come in and say these subnets want specific technical requirements or KYC or BYC requirements for their validators, et cetera. Know your customer, know your business. And we can create a market for validators, which then drives validators to want to stake on primary network as well as subnets. And there's kind of a cycle there, but there are many different strategies for how they might create more and more demand.
So basically to build on a subnet or to use a subnet, these projects will have to have like enough AVAX to validate or to be a validator.
Exactly. And that's the case right now. But you know, when you look at the price of AVAX right now, and I think the minimum validator cost is 2,000, that could be a pretty hefty sum. And we want people to come and develop still. So we are also coming up with strategies to make it more affordable. There are programs out there. I want to say there's one called GoGo Pool right now where you can participate as a validator with only putting up like half the amount needed, and they can cover the rest, and then you help participate in rewards. There's also things that might be coming out of Avalanche in the near distant future. We're tentatively referred to as like, say, pay as you go, where we'll have a little bit of a model where it's a much more affordable scale, where instead of you need 2,000 AVAX, it might be more along the lines of like, hey, you just pay small incremental amounts over time to be able to spin it up. And that way we can make it a little more entry level.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if you're a small developer and you got to put up like 60 grand, I guess, just to start building something, there's a little pay to play or kind of
it's not realistic. And if we want people to deploy subnets at the speed at which people deploy websites, we need to make that more accessible. And there are a lot of strategies we're employing, or providing grants, or funding different programs. We have a department, Ava Cloud, that helps work with quality projects, even if they don't have the funding to help. Maybe we manage the nodes for a while, et cetera. But being able to make it more accessible for developers is like really important. Mm-hmm. We want to like make that happen.
Yeah, you want people building things.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't make the barrier of entry like that. So it's an important piece that we're working on.
Could you talk more about Ava Cloud? I did see recently there was like a partnership between Tencent and Ava Cloud. I don't know if you worked very closely with that or if you have much information on that.
Happy to talk more about Ava Cloud. I probably don't have the specifics of that specific partnership.
Okay.
But Ava Cloud is kind of our solution to individuals needing resources or technical expertise when developing their own subnet. So like in the same way that when you're deploying your own website, you go to AWS, you're purchasing certain servers or certain pieces of analytical information, security, et cetera, and you just want to focus on your website. You want to develop that, and you don't want to worry about these other things that might be a little bit more like low level or infrastructure, and you want to be able to spin it up quickly and out of the box. And that's kind of similar to what our Ava Cloud is providing. So when the team got into like, hey, we have this subnet technology, it's really useful, where a DApp that's being throttled by some chain because it's not able to handle the throughput or the amount of transactions they want. They want to go to deploy their own subnet. But deploying a subnet, it can be incredibly technically challenging. Like, it's new technology, it's very advanced, and there's a big startup cost. So Ava Cloud, what we do there is we offer hands-on white glove technical services to be able to go like, hey, here, let's walk you through this whole process. And not only walk you through this whole process, we'll help spin up these things almost near immediately for you. Like, we're able to spin up a subnet for you with an Explorer within the same day or two. Like, we can come in and help customize what you want about that subnet, gas limits, different KYC requirements, and then get you the ancillary tools you need that are necessary for any blockchain to succeed. Like, you can't have Ethereum out there without Etherscan. Like, you need a good explorer to be able to sift through that on-chain data, and you want your users to be able to see the transparency of what's happening on-chain. So we'll give you those tools. So that way, someone who's coming in and developing and they want to develop their game and they want to focus on their game, they don't need to worry about these other things that are incredibly technically difficult to build and are projects all on their own. We'll help spin those up immediately for you and the best way we can, and help manage those for you. And then you can focus on your project. And that's kind of what Ava Cloud offers. And the reason projects would want to go to their own subnet is, like, say they're working on some other chain, either be it Ethereum or even our own EVM-C chain, and say like, I have a game, I have millions of transactions going through, and this EVM with all these other dApps is just not giving me what I need for transaction throughput. But having a dedicated blockchain just for your application that you own, where you can customize what the validators are doing, how many validators you have, what the user requirements are, if it's private or it's public, that's incredibly useful. So that way you can really just control everything around your application, and users aren't worried about like, oh, there's an NFT mint happening on some other tool that I've never heard of that's throttling my game. No, you can really customize, control that with these subnets. And that's what we're offering, and we're helping to spin those up with you so that you can focus on your DApp, your game, your financial exchange, whatever it is you're trying to build.
How do you see, I feel like artificial intelligence is changing everything right now. And coming from a crypto standpoint, I think about it a lot and how it's going to affect these blockchains and how blockchains are going to utilize artificial intelligence. Have you seen an effect, or have you seen something from the Ava Labs teams that's thinking about how Avalanche is going to use artificial intelligence?
It's definitely top of mind. And I think like the most recent ones that I've seen, or the most like out there or currently out there use cases I've seen, is a lot of like interpretation for users. So one example is you drop into these explorers and you have this intricate information on what is happening on chain in a transaction. Having a AI API be able to interpret that for a user and then distill it down to like, Kieran transferred for us X amount of money for this reason, et cetera. And I think a lot of the consumer tools will probably see more and more of that going forward, where instead of having to have individuals navigate the difficulties of sometimes these transactions, which it does take a level of know-how and research to be able to learn how to do a little bit of crypto interaction, you might be able to just communicate with an AI and just say like, hey, I'd like to send these funds, or I'd like to invest in this program, and it'll help just execute that for you. So a lot of these consumer-facing interactions will probably be some of the first use cases. Long term, who's to say how good these things get? But I think it's going to be a slow game no matter what. Slowly we'll find a tool that will work very well for users. First, it'll be like information based, like I said, for the Explorer. Then people will start using funds with it. But it might be a little while before you're willing to tell an AI, hey, send $10,000 here, et cetera, in case there's a mistake. So, but it is an interesting thing. It is top of mind. So we'll see how it goes.
Do you think, because I noticed with Solana, Avalanche, Ethereum, as they become more successful, as the transactions grow, there's either congestion, the gas fees go way up. Like if the price of Avalanche continues to go higher, even though say it's only, I don't know, zero point 0 whatever transaction. Like, do you think it's truly scalable to like the whole world, or are they going to have to continue to update?
I don't know much on, like I won't comment on like say Solana or Cardano or the others, but for Avalanche, our goal is scalability, and that's kind of like one of the primary key offerings of it. So that's what subnets are offering, is being able to have like horizontal scalability. So being able to deploy your own subnet and not have to worry about being throttled by other tools or other things being developed on your chain, so that your chain can process how many ever transactions it needs. But we're going to hit a point where like the EVM can't handle how many transactions you want to put on a single chain. So now we got to start getting to new VMs. So who knows like what upper limit is on all this stuff, but being able to set yourself up with some kind of customizable and adaptable tool such as Avalanche to be able to do that is kind of like the first step. And that's kind of where we're at.
There's all these layer ones that are competing: Solana, Ethereum, Avalanche, Cardano, whatever. Do you see it as a winner take all scenario, or do you see it as there's going to be a couple major winners? Do you ever think about that, or does your team talk about that?
Not in the sense of like, right now we're very focused on providing utility to what projects want to build on us. I think that's like the theory of like very long term, like who will be left and who offers what. And I think it's, that personally, I can't speak for everybody at my company or even like the views of like the official view of my company, but there'll probably be a few solutions out there offering certain things for certain niches of the industry, and they handle that. And then there's some technologies that like own whole sectors. And the goal is to, at least for Avalanche and Ava Labs, is to like be a participant in that and like see where we can offer the best utility for individuals and find certain sectors that can like really want to sink their teeth into our technology and like we really offer some value. How many will be left, or if it'll just be one, I do not know. But it's also a decentralized technology, so who knows if anyone even is running it at that point. It's all on a DAO and it's all just one thing. So who knows?
Yeah. So what's going on kind of in like on either the roadmap or things coming up soon? Do you have any like different projects that are being built that you're excited about or that you're working with? Or is there anything on the near distant horizon?
Well, I guess on the Avalanche side, less so than the DApp side of core. There are like some cool ones that especially are much more user facing or validator facing that would be kind of exciting. One is say like continuous staking on the horizon, where individuals can say stake instead of having like a certain set time.
Oh my God, that'd be
time.
So great. I was like totally going to say that because I thought about that so many times with Avalanche. I'm like, why do I have to come back to this and restake it? It's so annoying.
Yeah, and then you forget for 2 weeks, and there's 2 weeks you weren't earning or something like that, and you just want to hold over a long period. So yeah, that's on the near term horizon, like medium term roadmap, which is exciting. So hopefully you like that feature. That's good to hear.
Definitely. I was wondering if you guys were working on that or if people were saying that because yeah, as a user, it's definitely a pain to be like, I have to like set a reminder to come back and be like, okay, I staked this for a month. So does that mean that you'll be able to unstake whenever and just stake indefinitely, or there's going to be like a lockup period, or do you not know?
I don't have the specific details. If I could imagine, it'll probably be like it restakes for the next set of lockup period that you've established. But I'm sure there's also been discussion on like being able to exit early, but be able to do that, but maybe you don't get your rewards. Like, oh, you don't earn any rewards, but you need the liquidity now. Because it is incredibly annoying sometimes, like say you're locked up for a whole year, something spikes or you're tight for cash and you're like, I need to exit this position. I need to be liquid. I'm willing to sacrifice the earnings to get it. So, there's discussions on that, but this is all on our, our platform development is slow. We have a lot of great people who work on it, and we'll see when those kind of features come out.
On the DApp side, on the core side, what are you guys working on?
Some of the things like that have come out recently that are very exciting are like a lot of the customizations that come from, say, our Avalanche platform team, we make sure are immediately accessible within our dApps. So like we recently made like say some simple features, say like P-chain send available, where instead of having to cross-chain transfer to move your assets around, you can send directly on our P-chain. And then making things much more customizable for users that have tons of wallets. So like if you go onto our core extension now, you could have like tons of mnemonic phrases all within, or seed phrases, or multiple ledgers all locked into the same wallet so that you can manage these many things. Those are just like, just making those experiences more exciting. But in terms of like long-term features, if you've read about, say, like Teleporter coming out of the Avalanche tech, being able to have like a user-faced application of that is something we want to look into, or being able to, again, another thing that's coming out of the Avalanche that we want to have directly within our user-facing applications is, say, subnet staking, and individuals being able to stake their ERC20s for their subnet. So say like you're a subnet and your native token is some kind of ERC20 that you had minted on some other EVM chain way back when. And you don't want to break up your liquidity by moving into a new subnet. So you want to bridge everything over. So having say our new teleporter tool, being able to move those assets over, but you want users to be able to stake with that asset. So right now you can only stake with Avalanche on the primary network, but say hey, you're a subnet, you want to focus on your subnet and your users are focused on your utility, let them stake with that ERC20 that you've focused your entire development on. Having that available would be really exciting. But a lot of these are dependent on hey, when do these features come out of Avalanche, and making sure we're applying them for core for these users.
So that would be, say, someone builds a new subnet, they have their own native token, they want to be able to stake that token?
Yes,
then
exactly.
Something like that?
Yeah, exactly. And then making that accessible to users. So that's a lot of our focus out of Avalanche is out of core is making these advanced features that you really aren't otherwise accessible, because it's our specific focus to make sure that, okay, this is what subnets need, or this is what they need for their users, and how do we make users find that as easily as possible.
Nice. You mentioned Teleporter. I don't know. I haven't heard about Teleporter. Could you speak more on that, what that is?
Sure. I can't dive as crazy as into the actual developers of that tool, but so if you're familiar with bridging technology right now, or even over the past few years, there's a lot of different solutions out there, and even our own, where you have to move an asset from one chain to another, or some kind of message from one chain to another, and it's usually incredibly specific. You have some middleman that might be custodying that asset. In the terms of say the Avalanche bridge, you'd have this enclave that's custodying a wallet while you mint a wrapped version of it on the other side. So now you have wrapped ETH or wrapped Avalanche, and then you're trusting that bridge won't get hacked, et cetera, so that your asset is worth it. And if it does get hacked, then suddenly the liquidity goes, who knows, tails up. But bridging is so important to be able to move liquidity around between chains. Otherwise, they're like these isolated little internets within themselves. So a solution to that, because we want all these subnets to be able to easily help each other, or move liquidity between each other, or move anything between each other, like arbitrary message transfer between each other. Teleporter was developed. Teleporter is an application of something called Avalanche Warp Messaging. So in essence, it's enabling users to move assets between different subnets, or any other kind of message. It doesn't have to be an asset, but it's your NFT data, your ERC20, your native token, being able to move those between subnets without an intermediary facilitating or custodying it, and having that real actual asset on the other side. So there's a burn, and then there's a mint, but of the actual asset. So then you can bring it back as needed. And it's an interesting tech available for subnets, and we're just kind of getting into it, where you can now easily move assets without the need of some expensive and risky bridge technology. I see it as the same thing that kind of happened with us with subnets, where we had this really cool tech, and it's really difficult to explain, but once people use it, they see the true utility. So we had Ava Cloud come in, and now we have dozens and dozens of subnet projects. They spin up so quickly, I can't keep up with them. So you've mentioned a few, and I'm there are so many, I don't know every single one. And we're hoping to set up the same with say Teleporter, where This is a very new tech to be able to move things very seamlessly between chains, or messages seamlessly between chains. And we're going to try to make that as easy as possible for these things to set up so that they can move their assets or their messages, their Oracle APIs as best as possible.
And that will just be in between the Avalanche subnets and Avalanche chains.
There are ways to set it up with others. I don't know that, I don't have the specifics to be able to detail that, but our focus is making sure that it's specifically available for subnets. And then, there might be applications for it in the future between non-Avalanche based chains, but for now, that's what we're aiming for.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that'd be great if you could go between chains.
Yeah, easily move Solana assets over to something else, without having to deal with whatever crazy bridge you've now discovered that you have to trust. Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that would come back into the perfect wallet.
The perfect app with totally smoothless, and you abstract away from the user that they're even on a chain. It would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what we'll need to do eventually, though, that you won't see the chain at all. There will
I've heard people say that, and I've either at other companies or even my own, where it's like, as soon as someone doesn't realize they're interacting with a blockchain and it's not the top of mind and they don't even know anything about it, that's when we've kind of made it, in the sense of we've really made a tech they don't even know, they don't even care, they're just doing their thing on their user interface that's useful for them. And then on the back end, we're doing what we have to do with this blockchain technology to make it as efficient as possible for them. Mm-hmm. That would be that's a great goal for a user interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it will happen eventually. It's what needs to happen. I mean, it'll be interesting. I wonder what will be the actual next Facebook or Netflix or something built on a chain.
Yeah.
That everybody uses. I mean, that's going to be a game changer, I feel like, for the crypto space and the Web3 space. And there's really something that everybody knows, and an international brand. And you don't really even know it's on a chain. It just seems like another tech company, but it's really built on something.
Yeah, that'll be a very cool experience. I don't know what that will be. I have an inkling gaming might have some of the first say in that, where you're interacting with these video games and you don't even realize that how unique your gun or skin or whatever is, and that has actual some form of discernible value in there. But you know what, you're on Xbox, you don't even know, you're just playing your video game. But who knows, at some point it's here's your Netflix, here's your social media version of this. Who knows?
Well, it seems like a no-brainer, especially in the gaming space, with the way skins work and attributes and things like this, to tokenize them or to have them be NFTs. But I've also heard, I don't know if it was Fortnite or Epic Games or something, talk about how they don't want, I mean, I could see that the old school game developers don't want the user to actually own the market, kind of the market. They own the entire market, and you're essentially paying money for almost nothing. But if you can take that value and essentially take it off of their platform and give it to somebody else or bring it to another game or something like that, then they actually you lose control of the marketplace. But I'm sure another competitor will come in, because I feel like gamers, I mean, even back in the World of Warcraft days, it was people were buying and selling swords and stuff like this. They want that, but it's probably not actually great for the game or the developers unless they're taking a commission. But instead of owning 100% of that market, basically, and the skins are essentially worthless, except for you're paying $20 or $30 or whatever for the skin in Fortnite, and it's essentially zero because you can't really trade it to anybody.
Yeah, there'll probably be games like Fortnite that stay in that Web 2 tech, where that works best for them. And then you're right, is there benefit if they can't take some royalty on top? Or maybe they'll just drive usage by hey, we have a secondary market. We'll build that marketplace for you. We won't even take anything on top, and we just drive usage to our game because it's so exciting to go out there and be I can prove uniqueness of this sword or this map that I built. And by proving that uniqueness, I can prove its value, and then people will, pay for that value and within that game, and then they can go use it. And there's tons of tokenomics, and I'm glad we're moving away from the play to earn thing where it's just so gimmicky. And I'm glad we're getting into this more interesting aspect of it. I talk about gaming mostly because I'm not a huge gamer, but it's just such an interesting use case that's gravitated to Avalanche. So it's something that we're very excited about.
Have you heard anything from developers about developing on Avalanche for games versus other blockchains, or like do you have an idea of why it seems like so much gaming has come to Avalanche?
The reason is because gaming, like especially for these like high quality ones, are anticipating so many transactions. So like won't name names on ones that have moved over to ours due to that, but we have ones, say like I'll give a great example that I like is Shrapnel, where they're anticipating like thousands, millions of transactions running through their the marketplace they aim to develop for their game. And to do that, you can't be on a chain that's sharing all of its activity with other developers or activity with other dApps. You want to be able to control that experience, be able to add to that threshold as much as possible, and then be able to adjust when needed. And that's kind of why we think we're getting a little bit of gravitation to us, because we're offering that customizable development experience within subnets. You can really control, like, hey, you know what, if you're anticipating X amount of users, like we can handle that because we're built for scalability. So that's kind of why we're having that little gravitas. Whereas like, there were times on Ethereum or even others where we had some game that was like doing some big mint and the whole network gas fee just skyrocketed. And then everyone's impacted by it and their game like suffered because of it. So being able to just make sure you're in that isolated vacuum and you're controlling that experience is like important.
Well, yeah, and if you're and also if it doesn't have anything to do with your project, you're just sharing a chain with another project that might have insane usage or transactions, and all of a sudden your project, your gas fees go crazy, or you just don't. It seems like a no-brainer if you can have your own chain, you can have your own ecosystem, you know what's going on. You're not like the idea thinking about, okay, we share a chain with some other project. You have no idea how that could affect your company, your game, your whatever you're building. Exactly.
We had in our two of our very early subnets. One was DeFi Kingdoms and one was called Krabata. Krabata was like pushing so many transactions through our Avalanche C chain that it was almost like we had to have the conversation of like, it's time. Like you guys are doing so much for like either for your own success or for like the success of other dApps. Like it's like you need this space to yourself to be able to develop. And we see like DeFi Kingdoms was one of those, and they've had a lot of success being able to like work as like they took a risk on us to develop a subnet, and they were kind of that threshold that broke the seal and showed that games have a lot more space to like do all those transactions in their own area.
Do developers normally start building on the C chain, or this was back before subnets were a really big thing, and if someone wants to build something new, they just build their own subnet?
Yeah, so that was like back before subnets were a thing. Well, like we knew about them and we were pushing them, but like people were still so used to the like, okay, you have an EVM chain like Ethereum, I'm going to build my dApp on top of your EVM chain. And then then we had to move some of these dApps off because it was time for them to like grow and expand on their own and to like not always throttle the network with whatever they're doing. Now, at this point, we're having people just skip the whole develop on C chain, develop on Ethereum, and just go right to like, we need to develop our own chain. We need to have this on our own. What is the best way to do that? And that's becoming more and more clear to especially very serious developers, ones with good funding, and even ones without good funding and have a great understanding of the technology. It's like, it's time to just go right to what is going to be best for my thing long term, and I don't have to make this jump later on when I can see difficulties happening. And that circles back to one of our original points of like, great, if you have these well-funded projects, they can go and develop their own subnet really quickly, and that amount of money to validate is nothing. But if you have these little developers who are really smart and you got some really dedicated devs, but you know what, they don't have the funding for 2,000 AVAX, like we need to make sure that's more accessible, and that's why that's important.
That makes sense. Are you still buying cryptos and investing in cryptos and doing that side?
It's something I dabble in here and there. I don't think I'm as crazy as everyone else, and I think I've calmed down a lot since COVID shut-in days. But it's still very exciting. It's something interesting to pay attention to, and it's interesting to like, because you're dedicated into the success of some projects. So you hear about projects, you buy into that concept, you read their white paper, and you think that's got real potential. And it's always those that end up like sticking around a while too. And then when the bear market ends and the bull market goes, if you found a project that's got like actual utility and it actually has some use case and it's going to drive users, it's got some transactions going through it, like you'll see those reemerge as well. So I don't know. I do dabble still and it's fun, but definitely not as crazy as I once was.
Yeah. Nice. Cool, Kieran. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on a call. It's been awesome.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. It was very nice speaking with you.